This video takes a look at a trail that is included in the USGS trail data, but that does not really exist and probably has not existed for over 10 years. So this is evidenced by the author's recent visit as well as my long history in this area. The fact that the depicted trail runs through the Big Thompson River for the most part, the fact that there is really no way to access the trail from the parking lot, there is no heat in the Strava Heatmap, and the fact that the USGS says the trail was sourced from Colorado Parks and Wildlife, but is actually in a park owned and managed by Larimer County. The screen, you have the data from the USGS in yellow with a green casing overlaid on the OpenStreetMap tiles. This is Forks Park, and it is off US Highway 34 between the Town of Estes Park and the City of Loveland in Colorado. I think the most telling thing is illustrated by imagery from Larimer County GIS. This was captured in 2021. You can see that the trail is for the most part in the middle of the Big Thompson River. Also notice it's, there is a parking lot here, but there really is no way to access the trail from the parking lot. And finally, notice the fact that even when the trail is actually over dry land, there really is no indication in the imagery that the trail exists there. There's kind of a little indication of like a social trail here, maybe used by fishermen, but really this, other than these stairs here, there's really no trail in this park. This is the Strava Global Heat Map. We have a lot of people cycling on US 34, a few people ducking into the parking lot for a break perhaps. Some people may be kayaking or canoeing on the Big Thompson. It's rather rough for that, but we do not have really anyone traveling along this location as indicated by the USGS data. Now this is a photo I took a couple days ago, October 15th, 2023. It's obvious from the sign we are in Forks Park. And if you look down on the lower left, it says Larimer County committed to excellence. So it strongly suggests that this park is run by Larimer County and not Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Further, I actually went to the cadastral data, and the land is deeded to Larimer County and not to the state of Colorado. Now the next picture I took at the bottom of the steps here, right at the edge of the river. The river in OpenStreetMap is mapped as a line string, or what we call a way in OpenStreetMap, and not an area. So this series of steps or stairs ends at the base of or at the edge of the river. So you can see there's no evidence of any bridges or any way to cross the river, and yet the trail obviously, as the trail data obviously depicts the trail as crossing the river, and there's no evidence of a trail in the imagery. Now I mentioned that the park is managed by and owned by Larimer County, but if I actually select the feature, this is kind of like an identify in ArcMap or most GISs, it says the source is CPW state wildlife areas or Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So that should be a red flag right there that the source of the data doesn't match the people that actually own and operate the park. Granted, sometimes you'll have a trail that the data source is from one entity and it's actually in an area managed by another, but it's a red flag definitely. Interestingly, this trail is not in Cotrex. So let me turn on that now. So that's the Cotrex data. If you're not seeing anything, that's the point. This trail's not in Cotrex. And I would think if this really is a trail, It would be in Cotrex, and especially if it's a trail managed by Colorado Parks and Wildlife, as the source of the data indicates. So I strongly suspect that this data from the USGS is over 10 years old. In September of 2013, the Front Range of Colorado, which this is part of, experienced some severe flooding, and the entire course of the Big Thompson River was altered by that flood, and whatever was here before was wiped out. So I actually pulled up some imagery from Larimer County from before the flood, and this is Forks Park prior to the flood. You can see there was a bridge across the Big Thompson River. The Big Thompson River was further north, closer to US 34, and it does look like there was a trail there. Again, this is imagery from 2011, so a long time ago, but it is indicative of what might be going on here. In other words, the data predates a flood that happened 10 years ago. So the fact that data that's 10 years old, that is from a different agency than the agency that actually manages a particular park or bit of land, is really a red flag in terms of the process that the USGS is following. You know, neither CPW nor Larimer County is still pushing out this data, and yet it's somehow stuck in the USGS data. Now, a suggested QC step for this would be to take the polygons, the area features that represent parks and open spaces and similar type of lands, and I know that USGS has such data, and compare. Okay, we got a bit of land here. It's called Forks Park. It's managed by Larimer County, and yet we have a trail that's sourced from CPW. That's a red flag. It needs to be double checked. And yeah, there's going to be some false positives, but once you identify a false positive, flag it so the next time you run the check, you don't get the false positive again. I'd also recommend really taking a hard look at the whole mechanism of ingesting what would be essentially a deletion. Like, how does a land manager communicate to the USGS that a trail no longer exists? Because that apparently isn't really happening very effectively. So in summary, we have a trail in the USGS data that hasn't existed for over 10 years and is actually from a different agency than the agency that now manages the park in which the trail is located.